It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Conversations with Joan. Conversations with Joan will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life's Conversations with Joan. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Conversations with Joan focuses on topics that are important to your life, from health and wellness to professional development to personal well-being. Change makers join me to share their insights, tips, and strategies so you can thrive and live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. Now, let's start talking. Joining me is Dr. Bruce Lipton, author of the book, The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth. He's here to talk about how the state of bliss, passion, energy, and health, what he calls the honeymoon effect, is a personal creation and something that we can achieve and make last. Bruce is an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. He's the best-selling author of The Biology Belief and Spontaneous Evolution. Bruce, thank you for being back. Thanks for coming back. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Joan, I am so happy to be here with you, and I so appreciate what you're doing to lighten people's lives out there, and I'm glad you called on me because I have some wonderful things about making life a lot better for all of us.
Well, you certainly do, Bruce. I love your work. I am a student of your work, and everything that you have found and you've studied and you've presented to me makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the power that we have. So I'm very happy that you're here. A lot of your work deals with a science called epigenetics and the connection between our thoughts and our physical well-being. So with that in mind, what is the honeymoon effect? What is this biology and psychology of creating relationships?
Well, it's most exciting because everybody at some time or another has really fallen head over heels in love with another person. Now, it may have not lasted a long time, but what I really like is to ask people to go back to a time where they fell in love like that. And I ask three questions. So basically, I ask, were you healthy when you fell in love? And almost everybody says they were exuberantly healthy. And I say, was life so beautiful that you couldn't wait for the next day to have more of this experience? And the answer is, of course. And basically, really what it comes down to is an understanding that when we fall in love, our world changes. The day before you meet that special person in your life, the world could have been a conventional, everyday, upside-down, trauma thing. And then once you meet this person, all of a sudden, you experience the equivalent of heaven on earth because you feel so energized and so healthy, and life seems to go so beautifully. And you might say, well, wow, that was just what a coincidence that my life got so beautiful when I fell in love like that. And what I really want people to understand is it was not a coincidence, it was not an accident, that it was an actual understanding of how our biology is connected to our perceptions and our beliefs and our experiences to life. So that all of a sudden changing your world by falling in love, you really didn't change the world, you changed who you are. And what's so interesting about it is during this honeymoon period, this is this exciting, vibrant part of your life. And then at some point, almost inevitably for almost all people, that juiciness of the honeymoon just starts to slowly fade out, maybe even quickly fade out for some. And then life becomes normal again. And what I really want people to understand is this, is that experience was not a coincidence, as I mentioned, and losing it, there was a reason why. So the whole understanding is this. There was a mechanism as to how we created heaven on earth, and there's a reason as to why we lost that experience. And the significance is if you understand how you created and you understand why you lost it, then imagine the consequences that then you could have it for every day of your life forever if you understood these things. And this is what the Honeymoon Effect book is all about.
Bruce, are these subtle changes happening to us on a conscious level or subconscious?
Well, it's interesting because it's we create the honeymoon with our conscious mind, and we lose it when the subconscious starts kicking in, playing old programs that most of the programs that we got during our child development years, these are disempowering and limiting or even self-sabotaging. And as a result, when these programs kick in, all of a sudden we start to lose the magic. And it becomes important because if you understand it, then you can actually intervene, change that behavior, change that programming, and as a result, not have a honeymoon for a short period of time, but make it an everyday experience for your entire life.
So, Bruce, how do we get to be aware of what it is that's actually happening? Are there patterns or things that we should become conscious of so we can make the shift?
Yeah, here's the issue. The mind runs the biology in our life. It controls our nervous system, controls our behavior. Then we have to recognize there are actually two parts to the mind. We generally group them as one entity, but the fact is they're two interdependent activities of the nervous system. One is called the conscious mind, and one is called the subconscious mind. The significant difference is this. The conscious mind is connected to you, your personal identity, your source, your spirit. That's who you are. That comes from the conscious mind. The conscious mind is creative. That's the mind that I say, well, what do you want from your life? And the answers that you manifest at that point really come from the creativity of the conscious mind. So, simple point. Conscious mind is you. It has your wishes, your desires, and what you want from life. And I say, well, what about the subconscious mind? I go, well, here's the interesting part about it. The subconscious mind is more or less like a record playback device. It records our life experiences, and then if we ever encounter the same kind of experiences again, we don't have to relearn them like we did the first time. We just push the button and play the tape in response to those experiences. So the difference between the two is conscious mind is creative. The subconscious mind is just programs that you push the button and continuously play them. Now, the subconscious mind is a very powerful mind. It doesn't do little things. It can control your whole life, and so it's actually 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. Now, here's the issue: the subconscious mind's programs were primarily installed in our child development years, from the last trimester of pregnancy through the first 7 years. This is a period of time where a child is observing the world, and its brain is functioning below consciousness. A child actually doesn't express EEG-wise, electrical activity of the brain character of consciousness, until, as a predominant state, until after 7. The first 6 or 7 years, the brain is operating a little lower frequency called theta, which is imagination. And, of course, that's what children are characterized in that first 7 years, is living in the real and the imaginary world at the same time. That's because their brain is functioning at theta. But theta is also hypnosis. And why is that important? Because this is where we learn the foundational rules of becoming a member of a family, a society, a community. The thousands and thousands of facts about how to be a functional member of a society are downloaded, not with our consciousness. They're just like downloaded as a recording into our brain. Now, here comes the issue. The conscious mind is not time-bound. So I say, Joan, what are you doing next week? And your conscious mind leaves the current moment and starts to visualize what's happening next week. Or I say, Joan, what did you do last week? And at that moment, your conscious mind disconnects from the current moment as you sort of review your history. Or if I just say, imagine this, or if you're having a daydream or just a thought, that means your conscious mind is preoccupied in the dream or the thought or whatever it is. And each time the conscious mind is not paying attention to the current moment, the default behavior is switched to the subconscious. So the subconscious is, every time your mind's not paying attention, you play the subconscious programs. So in other words, if your mind wanders, you don't just stop. You're still going, but you're playing programs. Well, here's the problem. When the conscious mind is busy and we kick into the default programs of subconscious, by definition, we ourselves don't even see that behavior for a simple reason. Conscious mind looking into the future or the past or thinking, and therefore whatever behavior is playing at that moment, the conscious mind's totally unaware of. The big problem is this. It turns out, and science has recognized, that our conscious mind is busy in thought 95% of the time, meaning that we're only directly controlling our lives with our wishes and desires about 5% of the time, and 95% of the time we're playing programs that we acquired about who we are and how we behave that we acquired before age 7. It's very interesting. In my lecture, Joan, I ask people, I say, listen, I'm sure you had a friend that you knew your friend's behavior very, very well, and you happen to know your friend's parent. And at some point, you recognize that your friend shares actually some of the same behavior as their parent, and you volunteer casually. You say something like, "Hey, you know, Bill, you're just like your dad." And at that moment, you back away from Bill, who goes totally ballistic, saying, "How can you compare me to my dad?" And everyone laughs, and I say, well, there's two profound points to the same story. Profound point one, everyone else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. It's only Bill who doesn't see it. And the reason why? Because when he's playing the program that he downloaded by observing his father, he's playing it because his conscious mind's not paying attention. So whenever he plays that behavior, he's the one that doesn't see it, but everybody else does. And that's profound point one. And profound point two is every one of us is Bill. Every one of us is unconsciously playing 95% of the day programs from, that we acquired during our development, which psychologists tell us 70% of those are disempowering and self-sabotaging and limiting behaviors. Well, if 95% of your day is playing these programs and you don't see it, that means you essentially are sabotaging your life without you knowing you're even doing it. That makes us feel like victims. Oh, I wanted to be successful, I want to be healthy, I want to be in love, and it's not working out, and so the universe is against me. It's like, no, those are the wishes of your conscious mind, but you're not operating from that. You're operating from the invisible behaviors of the subconscious. And I said, well, what would happen if you actually didn't default to the subconscious mind, but you actually ran your life from your conscious mind with wishes and desires? I go, that's what we now recognize happens during the honeymoon effect. Science recognizes that when we're in deep love like that and making love, that our conscious mind doesn't wander. Makes sense. Everything you wanted is in front of your face, so why would you let your mind wander when everything is there? Well, the significance is if you and your partner are both in love, both operating from your conscious minds at the same time, then by definition, both of you are manifesting wishes and desires. Well, oh my God, yes, heaven on earth, that was your wish and desire, and there it is. And then I say, well, what happens to the honeymoon? Why does it fade away? And the answer is, just as we just talked about, is life gets busy inevitably anyway. Even if you're in this love relationship, you still have to pay the rent, fix the car, do the chores. And as your mind starts thinking about this rent and these jobs you have to do, your conscious mind, by definition, is not paying attention. And at that moment, you start shifting into the automatic default programs of the subconscious. Well, the behaviors in the subconscious mind are not necessarily your wishes and desires at all. Matter of fact, they're usually conflicting with that. So here's the point. You're in a loving relationship. You're having heaven on earth life experiences. Life starts to get busy. And imagine we're having this wonderful relationship, and she comes up and asks me a very simple question, but my mind is engaged in some thought about what I have to do. I turn around and respond to her default program, let's say my father's behavior, and I go, blah, blah, blah. And she looks at me and says, who are you? And the whole idea is this is the beginning of the end of the honeymoon for a very simple reason. Two things here is, one, this behavior I just introduced into the relationship, which never played up until this moment. And it's behavior that I actually got from other people, so it's not even me. I introduced some of this behavior, and it's really a very negative kind of response. Wow, where did that behavior come from? She's upset by this because this is not part of the relationship. Maybe if I had used that behavior on our first date, we wouldn't have had a second date. I don't know what that behavior was. So here's the point. She looks at me, goes, what kind of behavior is that? Now you have to realize I, who just played that behavior automatically, like Bill, didn't even see what I did. So I stand back and look at her and say, what are you talking about? I get defensive because I've been accused of not being me. She's concerned because this behavior is really not very supportive of the relationship. And then I'm separating from her. Why? Because when I'm in defense, I'm walling myself off in protection. And all of a sudden, the whole thing that made the honeymoon starts to fall apart. As more and more life interferes and I play more and more of my subconscious programs, and the same thing happens. We start introducing a whole new range of behaviors that were never part of our honeymoon experience. And these behaviors I mentioned are so negative in many cases that they're cause compromises. Geez, that behavior Bruce just did was really lousy, but I really love him for all the other wonderful things. Okay, I guess that happens sometimes. And then I do another bad behavior, and she goes, oh, my God, that's another. I'll have to compromise again. And as more and more compromises come into a relationship, accounting for these behaviors that never were there but now showing up. They etch away the honeymoon. And all of a sudden, it's not the juicy honeymoon, heaven on earth experience. Now it's more like everyday life. We still love each other, but all that excitement, joy, energy, all that seems to dissipate as we start to bring in the subconscious. So a simple conclusion is this. The honeymoon is created when two people are operating from their conscious minds. So there are two conscious minds involved, creating wishes and desires. The honeymoon ends when two uninvited minds, the two subconscious minds, kick in with their programs that are not necessarily positive at all, as psychologists tell us, and we start to dilute the honeymoon with these negative behaviors, and all of a sudden it disappears. The point is very simple. We created the honeymoon by operating from our conscious minds, and we lose it when subconscious programs kick in. Well, here's the point. If you stay conscious, then all of a sudden you have the honeymoon forever. And more importantly, if both people in a relationship understand that the problems are coming from subconscious, invisible behaviors, rather than getting into arguments over these aberrant behaviors, discussions, bringing it up and talking about it, like saying, wow, that behavior you just did that's more like your father or something, and then I would have to think about it, and as a result, I can start to change the subconscious behaviors, and here's the simple resolution. Because I can rewrite my subconscious programs. If I get notified every time I do a negative behavior, that gives me an opportunity to change that behavior and put in a behavior that my conscious mind with wishes and desires would like. Simple point. If I reprogram the subconscious mind and eliminate the negative programs and put in the programs for my wishes and desires conscious mind, then if I'm paying attention, then my conscious mind is giving me the honeymoon effect. But if my mind wanders and I default into the subconscious, but now I've got all the good programs, then it means even when I'm not paying attention, I'm still living in the honeymoon effect. So basically it says the resolution is simple. If you understand the nature of how the conscious and subconscious minds interact, if you understand how you can reprogram that subconscious mind, then basically you are now free to create a life where the honeymoon experience is every day of that life, whether you're paying attention or not, because both minds, conscious and subconscious, are aligned with the same wishes and desires and manifesting a perpetual honeymoon experience.
Bruce, what if you're someone that understands everything you just said and is operating in the present moment, in the conscious, but their partner is not? What happens then?
Well, that's where I said the problem comes in, because if the partner doesn't understand what we're talking about, and they've been accused of having a bad behavior, just by definition alone, if someone accuses you of something that's negative, the first thing you're going to do is defend yourself. And you're doing it without even knowledge of that you actually did have the bad behavior. Mm-hmm. So this means that there's no dialogue anymore. There's no communication. It's like he said, she said, and there's a wall, and this makes it very difficult to work out. That's why, to understand this relationship and to make it work right, both individuals in the relationship really have to have an understanding of this, because it allows them a point of communication, a point of dialogue, which opens up the opportunity for change.
And I would think that if one person was at least cognizant of what was going on, they can be more tolerant of a partner if you understand where that partner is coming from in their thoughts and actions.
Joan, that's exactly right. That is the intermediate step where at least one of them wakes up first, and then if they handle it right, they'll bring their partner into the communication and into the dialogue. If they don't, this is where the regular relationships fail at this point, is because, as I said, one person is now the accuser of the other person, and the one who's just been accused by definition is like totally lost. Why? They didn't even see what they just did or what they said. So as a result, they're completely mystified of how did their partner, why are they so angry? Where did that come from? Mm-hmm. They didn't even see what they did. So, but if you get the dialogue going, that's the opportunity to open the doorway. It's not going to work if there's no communication. Simple as that.
Now, Bruce, we're talking about the honeymoon effect in relation to having a partner or being in love, but can we take this information and apply it to anything in our life, our job, a project, anything, to get that kind of joy and passion?
That's a wonderful insight, Joan, because that's absolutely true. the fact is, when you get carried away and you keep your conscious mind in the present moment, whether it's because there's someone else bringing that heaven on earth experience into your life, or, as you mentioned, something that you love to do, whether it's your job or whatever, a hobby or whatever it is, if you get carried away, and this gives you so much joy that you keep your mind present while you're doing this, painting or gardening or whatever it is, if you keep your conscious mind present because you're so happy to be here at the current moment, then that means as long as your conscious mind is present, and they also refer to this as being mindful, that when you're mindful, that means you stay in the conscious control, and that means every decision and every action you make at that moment is really predicated on your wishes and desires, and not from some automatic behavior that somebody else programmed into you. And this is why the biggest issue we all have, and this is the crux of the issue right here, is I go back to that first 7 years of programming. And as I mentioned, psychologists tell us about 70% or so of that programming is negative. Well, the significance is that every time you flip into that subconscious, you are really engaging in a negative or self-destructive behavior, okay? Well, here's the problem. During that period of that first 7 years, not only we learn behaviors by observing other people, but we learn who we are. Meaning, how does a child know who they are? The answer is they consciously can't conceive of who they are. Their conscious activity of the brain isn't even a predominant brain state. They understand who they are by having other people tell them who they are. So imagine a wonderful scenario of a parent who are good conscious parents and loving their children so much that they tell them, oh, you're the most wonderful, loving child, you can do anything, and oh, this is so beautiful, and all those words that come back out, the child is downloading of, oh, they love me, I'm good, and all this kind of stuff. But it turns out parents are unaware of the things that they say are directly recorded in the child's mind. Parents act like coaches. When a child isn't doing well, or let's say a team player isn't doing well, the coach, what do? They say, come on, you can do better. That's not good enough. You know, I know that this what you're doing isn't of quality level, whatever. You know, and when a coach is saying that, the recipient, if they're older, is really understanding, oh, the coach is trying to goad me to do better, to perform better. So I understand what the coach is trying to do. But I said, if the child is not 7 years old, and they're just downloading the words, there's no consciousness, they're just downloading the words. So what do children hear? Most children hear their parents trying to improve them, but the parents are saying what? That wasn't good enough, you're not lovable, who do you think you are, you don't deserve that. Now, the parents don't mean that as a way of life, they're just trying to make that moment to like the coach. But then go back to the child's point of view, the child's just downloading that. What did the child download? Not good enough, not lovable, not deserving. Well, the significance is then after that, when that child is growing up, what are the programs in the subconscious mind about self? Most of these programs are very negative. And as a result, there's a simple fact, and when we check audiences, because we do with belief change work, 80% or more of the people in any given audience will not test positive to a belief statement of, I love myself. And the reason why is because of all the critical assessment that they received as children. It's critical, so it's not loving, it's criticizing them. Well, why is that important? Well, if 95% of your life is coming from subconscious programs, and your fundamental subconscious programming is you do not love yourself, how in the world can you find a loving relationship with somebody else? I mean, just psychologically thinking, I'm not good enough for my own self, and this person says they love me. Who are they? You know, what quality control do they have? And so basically, the biggest issue in finding love relationships is that the largest percentage of people on this planet will not have a subconscious belief that they love themselves. And if they can't love themselves, then by definition, they can't get into a loving relationship. That's just a given. And this is where the issues come from, and this is why it's so important that an understanding of conscious parenting and how we shape a child's future by whatever is going on in that first 7 years needs to be part of our world right now, because almost all of us have a very negative aspect about our own beliefs as to who we are and what we are capable of doing.
The book is The Honeymoon Effect, The Science of Creating Heaven on Earth by Dr. Bruce Lipton. This is incredibly powerful work. If you'd like to learn more about Bruce, visit his website, brucelipton.com. And as always, you can visit our website, CYACYL.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Bruce, thank you so much for being here today. As I said, this is very, very powerful work, and I really encourage our listeners to visit your site, brucelipton.com, to learn more about what it is that you have to offer. I think it's life-changing, and who doesn't want heaven on earth? So thanks for being here.
I so appreciate that opportunity to offer this information, because our world is really in need of a lot of love right now.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided is the opinion of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, CYACYL.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital articles, and be sure to subscribe to our mailing list. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.